Hi, I'm Gigi, an ex-Amazon bar raiser and senior leader here at Day One Careers. A very hot topic for job seekers is the ATS, Applicant Tracking System. So many people spend hours of time, even thousands of dollars, pounds, choose your currency, on the goal for Amazon, get my resume past the ATS. Now, with the level of competition these days for Amazon roles, this goal for Amazon, get my resume past the ATS, seems to be a hyper issue for Amazon applicants, which I guess is why you're here, right? Before we go on, just a quick heads up. I'm also releasing a version of this video using the term CV instead of resume. That's because in Europe, the term CV is used in the same way as in North America and other countries use resume. So if you watch this one, don't watch that one. So let's start with the basics. No one can not get past the ATS because it's not a barrier to get past. It's a software system that stores and creates workflows from information that is added to it. Think of it like a digital assistant that helps companies manage their hiring process. An applicant tracking system is a software designed to streamline and automate the recruitment process from kind of posting job openings to selecting candidates for interview. It just acts as a centralized database for all job applications, making it much easier for recruiters and hiring managers to organize, search, and filter through resumes. So with that in mind, what do you really mean when you come to me with the goal for Amazon of get my resume past the ATS? Well, the only thing you can really mean, given what we've just said, is get my resume noticed by an Amazon recruiter. So that's the first thing you're going to need to do, change your mental goal. But before we talk about this new goal, I am going to have to address some of the key myths, objections, concerns I know you all have about this topic. So I am going to start with a disclaimer. I am not a recruiter. I have never been a recruiter, and I have never used the recruiter features of the Amazon ATS. Note, however, I have used the Amazon ATS as an interviewer and a bar raiser and hiring manager. However, I've spent a lot of time learning about this subject, listening to Amazon recruiters about how they use the ATS, as well as other recruiters, and even listening to content and reading content from CEOs of ATS software companies in an attempt to try and understand this topic. Now, a lot of rage happens out there with candidates. Now, don't get me wrong, okay, I totally understand, didn't mean to be rude, but being a job seeker is exhausting, horribly stressful, and often demoralizing situation to be part of. So I often see frustration from job seekers who are convinced that they're being blocked by a system from a recruiter seeing their resume. They quote scenarios such as instant rejection emails sent in the middle of the night or early hours of morning, or a high percentage match of those online resume review sites, and then they don't get through. That's often cited as evidence that the ATS is the culprit behind their rejection. So let's cover these quickly. We're going to start with knockout questions, which may lead your application to be rejected almost instantly. Now, recruiters will have the option in most major ATS to implement knockout questions. These knockout questions would disqualify you from the role, even if the recruiter wasn't using an ATS for the intake. No matter how great the rest of your resume is, if the hiring manager or company has a criteria that is a non-negotiable and you don't meet it, then you're getting knocked out of the process immediately. The ATS simply provides an automated way of filtering out those that fail to meet that criteria. The ATS isn't making a decision. A human has added in that filter. So how do you avoid falling foul of those knockout questions at Amazon? Well, pretty simple. You need to read the basic qualifications described on the job description. If you don't meet the basic qualifications, then quite honestly, don't apply for the role. These basic qualifications are what the hiring manager considers to be non-negotiable. If you have the basic qualifications, then make sure you've captured them in your resume in a similar expression to the way that it's done in the job description to make sure they're picked up. Moving on then to the phenomena of rejection emails being sent at unsociable hours? Well, this is super easy to explain. 3 possibilities here. Number 1, there is a built-in workflow into the ATS that sends emails automatically between certain hours of the day. Maybe, let's say, when the company's servers are less busy within office hours, email traffic, document management, blah, blah, blah. 2, the recruiter working on your role may not be based in the same geolocation as you. An email in the middle of the night to you can easily be morning, mid-afternoon for someone in another country. And then 3, your recruiter is incredibly overworked and they're having to send their rejection emails after hours just to fit everything in. I really hope that's not the case, but it happens. Finally, a quick stop into this very opaque world of resume matching scanners, where you can use some website somewhere to input your job description and your resume, and it will then tell you how close a match your resume is to the job description. Now, exactly how these tools derive that match isn't really well understood. I assume there's a level of protectionism over the IP of such systems. So with that said, it's unclear if the matching variables and weighted contributions they've devised match how the recruiter views your resume. As I understand it, there are ATS that also have matching ranking features, and it's my understanding that some, but not all, recruiters make use of this feature. I have, however, never ever heard an Amazon recruiter claim to use that feature. Every Amazon recruiter I know of tells me they read every resume. So hopefully I've provided some clarity as to why it isn't some nameless bot that is presiding over your destiny. So let's get back to the goal that we agreed earlier. Well, I say we agreed. I agreed, and I have no idea if you agreed or not, but I assume you did, if you're still here. So get my resume noticed by an Amazon recruiter. That is our goal. The first thing to consider is format. Unless you're applying for some type of graphic design role, avoid anything creative like the plague. I've seen some candidates thinking they're being super clever by designing a resume that looks like an Amazon.com page. Amazon recruiters don't want that. Those types of resumes are really hard to visually navigate for content, when the only thing your recruiter actually cares about in your resume is, in fact, the content. It's a totally counterproductive exercise. So just plain text, maybe enhanced by some selective underlining and bolding. I recommend the font Calibri size 10 because it is the common font used in Amazon internal documents. Now, it's not going to make a difference if you use another plain text font like, I don't know, Arial, but seeing as you've got to pick something, you may as well pick the font that recruiters are used to. Also, avoid tables and graphs, and for the love of God, please don't include any of those kind of self-rating icon thingies. They're data points that are not backed by any evidence at all, so they are in fact totally pointless. So now we have a nice clean document which is easy to read. Now, you want to grab the recruiter's attention. A nice summary can be your golden ticket. Now, historically, I'm personally not a fan of summaries on resumes because usually there are paragraphs stuffed full of cliches and soft skills, for example, team player, ambitious, customer focused. You get the picture. If you're going to use one, make it specific and data rich and touch on some of the key requirements from the job description along with a tasty impact metric. If you can quickly demonstrate that you have some of the key qualifications and you have delivered for your previous employers, this should grab the recruiter's attention. Moving on in our goal to get my resume noticed by an Amazon recruiter, I'm going to tell you to ditch the skills section unless they are technical skills and qualifications. No recruiter wants to be faced with a wall of bullet points of generic or soft skills like negotiation, customer relationship management, analysis, team management, data, blah, blah. At best, they'll skip it. At worst, it'll put them in a negative frame of mind for the rest of the content. Then it's on to work history. Now, there are different schools of thought if this should be done in chronological order or not. If you want my opinion, which I assume you do, or you wouldn't be watching this channel, I personally stick with the traditional chronological. Again, because recruiters are just used to seeing it that way, and really, you want all of their cognitive load focused on absorbing your content and not maybe redirected towards deciphering format decisions that you've made. And so, on to how I recommend presenting your work history to get your resume noticed by an Amazon recruiter. I'm sure you've heard of the STAR model. Well, I think the STAR model can also be applied to resumes as well as the traditional interview. Let me explain how. Let's start with situation. In other words, who are you working for and what do you do for them? So name who you work for with the dates. And in addition, unless they're a big well-known name, add what the company does. On so many occasions, I found myself having to do research on Google to get this information. Just don't make your recruiter jump through that hoop. Just explain in one sentence what they do. Then go on to explain in another sentence what your role was and what you were employed to achieve. Do that and we now know what situation you were in, and we can move on to task. In other words, what were your specific responsibilities? I like this task responsibilities section because it allows you to demonstrate the functional skills you have, which ideally match those described in the job description. Now, there is no doubt that to get your recruiter to really notice your resume, you're going to have to provide some evidence of achievements in these functional skills, but you're unlikely to have impressive numbers for all of the functional skills they're looking for. So this section allows you to cover what functional skills you bring to the table that match those asked for by the job description. You might want to combine them, like 2 or 3 in a sentence, so it doesn't look like you've just kind of ripped the list off the job description and shoved it into your resume. Make sure you don't miss the basic requirements. Now, I am not claiming for a second that this section is a must. Plenty of resumes make it through to hiring managers without having this section. But personally, I think it makes it super easy for your recruiter to see where you match the skills requirements of the role. Then results. Here is where you seal the deal and show how effective you've been in the deployment of your functional skills. To get my resume noticed by an Amazon recruiter, you absolutely must include data points on how you've impacted your employer's business through using the functional skills you've mentioned in the task section. Doesn't need to be all of them, just some. In an ideal world, they want to see the metrics you've achieved. It can be an absolute or a percentage. They'll also want to see how this compares to your goal or how this compares to the norm or prior periods. In other words, you'll demonstrate, here's the data about how great I've done, and here's the supporting data to show you why genuinely it really was great. By making your resume easy to read and making sure the content reflects the requirements of the job description and provides evidence of how valuable your impact has been to previous employers, you will get my resume noticed by an Amazon recruiter. Now what you need to do is click the link here to claim your free Day One Careers Customer Obsession Taster course. Watch that and you'll nail every customer obsession question asked of you in your Amazon interview. Or if you want to do that a little bit later, why don't you check out more here of our incredible insights and advice on Amazon interview preparation.